All right, so we just listened to the new Spiritbox album, second full-length album that they've had, entitled "Tsunami Sea." So now we're going to talk about it a little bit, give you my thoughts. We'll go over to my co-host Jordan and come back around and give you our ratings for a final review. So, big fan of Spiritbox. I got into them. It was around "Blessed Be" was when they first put out that track. Was still my favorite Spirit Box track. And then I had heard about them about, Mara Effect back in the day. But I just like hadn't heard it until, I really started getting into them. And the thing I find most interesting about this is I feel like this album compared to Eternal Blue and the EP that they put out and all and that this feels closest to original Spirit Box in my opinion. Very much Mara effect. It's very, very progressive like metalcore, very Tesseract. Little bit of volumes too. Reminds me a lot. So much of that more than like again more than Eternal Blue. So I think it's really cool to see this kind of more of a throwback, which I feel like a lot of the newer fans probably I don't even know if they've really gone and listened to Mara Effect. But so it's really interesting to see that because I feel like a lot of people may not pick up on that. But it's it's really interesting because I feel like there's less pop influences in this, which I haven't seen anybody like really talk about or mention. Um, because a lot of this is like straight up like progressive metalcore. Like the first two tracks are like just like straight up standard metalcore. Like they're heavy, fast. There's not a lot of clean singing. They don't really use a lot of the pop beats and stuff from like Eternal Blue. I think Eternal Blue had a lot of it, but the thing I liked about Eternal Blue was that while they had those things, they still every single song would still go back into the heavy. Like they would still remind you, like, "Hey, we're doing this, but we also still have this." So it was a really nice, like, kind of blend. And this kind of is more a lot like more straight up progressive metalcore to me. There's only a couple tracks on here who really use that kind of pop influence. Um, so I'm curious to see how other like newer fans or the people that kind of shun them for being, modern metalcore and all that, like tying them in with like Bad Omens. I see that like comparison a lot. And like, this is like, no, like, I want to know what they think of this because this is like basically just progressive metalcore, like straight up. Aside from the last few tracks, in my opinion. I don't know. I'm just gonna be honest. I love Spirit Box. I love Courtney. They've been huge for my channel and everything. I don't know. I don't think this is like Eternal Blue is just like that album's made me cry like multiple times. This one
Yeah.
has some really like powerful moments in it, too, but just not. Those are like very more personal in Eternal Blue, and this is like it's still close. I think this is still really close. It's great music. I really love the progressive feel to it, especially with like the tie-in of like the whole ocean theme. You have the ocean like flowing in and out through the different songs, all the references. Again, that's a prog thing as well. So again, that's kind of a part of that. But I still think Eternal Blue for me is just it's the gold standard. And but a lot of this like really touches it. It is real. This is still really good. I only have like a couple of gripes, and they're not like really any gripes. It's just that it's more of the for me it's the layout of the album, because the last three songs are like the softest, and so it kind of I really don't want to be negative, but it kind of like lulls out a little bit, because you've got the EDM like kind of focus track. And then you've got the one after that that's it's another soft one, but it does have like a really heavy breakdown in it. Which is really cool kind of again a really cool kind of clash that they have, it's a really soft song and then it's just like bam and then it brings it back up. And then the last track um is like completely like a soft track. I don't think there was really, much of a like a breakdown or anything. Not that you have to, I don't want to have to say it, you don't have to end in a breakdown. I'm just saying that those three tracks like back to back, it kind of lulled compared to the rest of the album, because the rest of the album, has, so much like riffing and, all that pacing. I feel like if they just would have moved some of the tracks around, like that EDM track, put that a little bit earlier in the album, put it like, or maybe like right in the middle, and then maybe switch the last two, that soft song, so that you could have that little breakdown at the end to kind of like, give you that, like, just that little bit of a pop, because it's just there wasn't a pop and you're really in that last song. That's just me. I'm sorry, that's just how I feel about it. Still great music. I think it's just the way it like kind of lined up and all the order of the tracks just kind of it lulled. I mean, that's the only word I can think of at the end. But again, that's just more pacing than songwriting ability. I think the songs are still great. Everything they did was good. Um, let's see, what else do I have in here? Production is great. There's lots of low end. There's lots of like bass like solo tracks that they'll cut out. As opposed to like how Eternal Blue would have the pop stuff. In this one, they'd have more just like guitar breaks. They'd take out the guitar and it would just be kind of like the bass and the drums. But it still had kind of a heavy feeling. Which is also, prog really focuses on that kind of like clean kind of feeling. So kind of throws to that. But the production is really strong. I like that the cymbal work, a lot of the cymbal work, um, you could argue that the cymbal work could be a little bit higher up in the mix, a little bit louder to give it more of a pop. But also, I think it's kind of a stylistic choice with the whole like ocean thing, because it kind of get the way the cymbals are very soft, it kind of gives it like a bedding, and I kind of feel like it kind of alludes to like an ocean kind of feel. So I can kind of see where they're going with that. Let's see, Keep Sweet, that one was really good. That one was the first one on the album that had like the very kind of poppy kind of section in it. One of the only songs, I still think there was only like two songs that really did that, two or three. Let's see. Haven with Two Faces, probably my favorite track on here. Very beautiful. Reminded me a lot of Eternal Blue. That one's the one that had where she kind of had like a sing into a yell into a scream. Just really fucking great bridge. Beautiful bridge right there. Um Crystal Roses was really interesting because I'm a big EDM fan, so it was really cool to see them kind of do an almost an EDM track. They said they were like very influenced by it. So one thing I did notice about that was like when they actually brought in the actual instrumentals, it kept that fast like kind of drum bass, the bass drum kind of beat to it. So it was really interesting hearing the transition from like the electronics into a straight up. But again, it wasn't like a heavy track, so that into the last two songs, it was just like I just would have changed the pacing a little bit. That was really my only negative here. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's Eternal Blue, but it's like right here. I'm telling you, like it's not much lower. And I love it kind of still feels like part of Eternal Blue, again with Eternal Blue and a sea and the ocean and all that shit. It's kind of it's connected, so I kind of appreciate that. But I think this was overall more heavy than like Eternal Blue, like I should say consistently heavy. There was so much riffing. The tone, God, the guitar tone on some of these tracks, he really like brings out that fucking, the fucking the genty ass shit. That people forget that they got that prog to them. So I really appreciate him for that. But I mean, it's a great album. It's a great album. I would switch up, the some of the ways the songs are, but other than that, I mean, it's great. I thought it was really good. So, Jordan, what did you think?
It's almost a perfect album. Like it's literally like right, like you said, like it's right there. There are some things I like more than Eternal Blue, and then there are some things I like more on that than this. There, it's very much almost on the same level for me. Just didn't quite have that punch. Like there's a little bit, a little bit of that emotion in there. But it's more of just like a general emotion, kind of like it wasn't super like specific feeling. Like especially compared to something like Constance, where it's like
Yeah.
it's obviously like a very personal song. But this one's just a little bit more broad, kind of I guess to have the theme kind of fit more and be a little bit more cohesive.
More of like a
Um,
vibe, like an emotional vibe than a topical.
yeah, which I do like a little bit more than Eternal Blue, just because a lot of those songs feel kind of like on their own. Um, there's not really too much of a theme to that album, it doesn't feel like, but this one feels more like a cohesive, like singular product, you know? Especially with like the waves in between some of the songs and all that stuff. I'll get to that part in a little bit. But I think the first song was great. Like, they just right out the bat, like, they just hit you. They don't really slow it down and have any clean singing until, like, the bridge, like, right before the outro of the song. Like, there's a little bit of, like, a spoken word part that she does, and, like, that's probably the cleanest part of the song. Black Rainbow, that one was also really heavy. Perfect Soul, I didn't really take note of that one too much. Keep Sweet, I think that one was one of my favorites. It was a little bit of a lighter feel, you know, they changed it up from the first 3 songs. I like the tempo with that one. There's a lot of weird kind of, like, change ups, here and there where it kind of feels like it's gonna go into, like, one kind of part, but then it kind of, like, goes into, like, a different part. There's actually a couple songs that are like that. I think might have been the Ride the Wave, the second to last or the last song that kinda had that. I thought that was interesting. It just kind of keeps you on your toes, and you're kind of like, "Whoa, what was that?" That was kind of like a weird transition. Soft Spine, that one was super heavy. Love that one. I think that one was the first single. I tried not to listen to them, so that one was a real good surprise. I had seen that everyone was all like, "Oh, they're super heavy" or whatever, but I was just kind of like, I'll keep my frame of reference in mind until I listen to the actual thing. I think that was one of my favorites. Tsunami Sea, as a title track, I think that one was really solid. Definitely not as good of a title track as Eternal Blue. Like that one, that song is just like peak music. Like that solo just makes me cry every time. Like it's so good. Like the
Mhm.
solo over the
Yeah.
breakdown, like peak music right there. But I think number 7, Haven with Two Faces, that's probably my favorite. That one was just super dynamic. There was a lot of like really good low end in that song, like a lot of like really good like sub bass in there in the background that kind of like had everything, you know, kind of like a big kind of, you know, bombastic kind of feeling, you know. No Lost, No Love, that one was just another just kind of shorter, heavy track. I thought that one was pretty solid. Crystal Roses, probably one of my new favorite Spirit Box songs. Like I love early 2000s EDM, so that's just like straight up my alley. Like I said, it sounded like Kingdom Hearts. Like it straight up sounds like, you know, just that kind of thing, which kind of goes together with the theme of like islands and like water and ocean. It kind of, you know, has that. Ride the Wave, I thought that one was really, really good. Definitely could have been the closing track, but I can see why Deep End was picked as the closing track. And then I'll go into that one. Deep End, I thought that was a really good song. But as a closer, I think they could have done a couple things here and there that would have like just made it amazing. Like I had one little note, like at the very end, if they would have just, like, cut everything out and have, like, the waves and the ocean and kept that acoustic guitar and, like, repeat the chorus again and have it end with just, like, the waves and shit, like, that would have just, like, made that song perfect, and it would have fit so well with the theme. It would have, like, tied everything together. It would have been so good, but they didn't do that, so I was like, "Ah," like, just push it a little bit more and it would have
Mhm.
been, like, absolute peak right there. Um, but, you know, other than that, I thought that one had, like, the most poppy feeling out of all of them besides Crystal Roses, you know? Um, but I like the tempo, I like the fast pace of it. It wasn't like a slow, soft song, it was like a very energetic, soft song, so, um definitely kept the energy up after, Ride the Wave kind of slowed it down a little bit right at the end. Um, so I if they would have just had that little bit at the end, that would have just made it perfect and tied it together for me. But otherwise, I think this is probably, like right under there. Eternal Blue is 10 out of 10. This is like 9.8. Like
Yeah.
it's right there. Like I said at the beginning, I like some things more than Eternal Blue, and I think I like a little bit more of the stuff on Eternal Blue, a little bit more. Like I definitely didn't miss a lot of those like kind of like Billie Eilish kind of like sounding parts, like where it's like very obviously kind of like that thing. Um, they kind of more just like overall kind of spread out that kind of stuff here and there. Like there was can't remember which song it was, but there was kind of like where it was like a talking kind of like spoken word kind of like softer part over like a beat. That kind of gave me that feeling a little bit, but they didn't go too far into it. They just kind of kept it in that part, which I think is a little bit more cohesive and added a little bit less of, that poppy feeling and kind of added more to like, I don't know, kind of more of like a progressive kind of like
Hmm.
just kind of like a weird part in the song, which I think they do that kind of thing a lot better than, just doing like the straight up pop. Overall, almost perfect. The mix, amazing. The low end is so good. Like, there's, like, points where they just have, like, that pad of, like, that sub bass, or there was, like, one song where they kind of had, that 808 kind of, like, bass in the background with the part, like, kind of like a little bit of, like, a hip hop thing, like, kind of feeling thing. I thought that was really cool. Like, all these little touches I thought were, a lot better than, the other kind of touches that they sprinkled out throughout, Eternal Blue. So, I do agree with you. They could have changed the songs around a little bit. Like Ride the Wave and Crystal Rose definitely should have been like up in the list, just to kind of break it up. Uh Crystal Roses in the middle would have been perfect. Like that's kind of like it feels more like a kind of interlude kind of track. So I thought that would have definitely helped the album a little bit more. But uh overall I think it was amazing.
So I'm guessing you're going with a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go with 9 out of 10. Like it's right there. Like it just didn't quite have those little touches, but,
Hmm.
like, overall, it felt, more cohesive.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's a 9 out of 10 for me. Eternal Blue's a 10 out of 10, but again, that's just it had those. Eternal Blue had those moments that were just like, oh god, and there was at least one of those in here. Like I said, Haven with Two Faces, that was a really good. That transition on the bridge was just so good. But and I absolutely love again the feeling of the old school. It feels like old school Spirit Box to me. It feels like Mara Effect, and I wonder, what a lot of the newer people, if they've even listened to Mara Effect, because they would be like, wow, this is, there's a lot of a lot. I feel like a lot more prog in here, a lot more prog core um, than in their previous stuff. So it's really interesting to see that. But they still have, little touches of the stuff from the EP, the new metal mix, and then and then some of the other recent stuff that they also did that has that little bit of that EDM. So still, it's really great. I just, Eternal Blue is god tier, and this is like, just below that. So yeah, 9 out of 10 for me for sure. Still really great. Um, and 9 out of 10 for Jordan. So great job, Spirit Box. We love Spirit Box here. Really appreciate them for their music. So yeah, great job.